Hello, and welcome to another episode. Today, I actually want to be talking about prioritizing your goals for a peace filled summer. This is something that's really, really important to me because I talk with a lot of women in the Hormone Wellness Academy and my VIP program, in my emotional freedom courses. And one of the biggest areas of struggle for them is learning how to take their goal or their ideal for what they really want their summer or specific season to look like and actually reverse engineer it so that it is what we want it to be. So, a lot of times, I know for myself, I can get kind of stuck in a rut of like, oh, I really want it to look this certain way, but then I don't actually set myself up for it to look a certain way. And I realized as I was kind of preparing for our summer with both of the girls being home, me working from home, my oldest is 12 years old, so she doesn't really need like a nanny, babysitter, but my youngest definitely does. And essentially, I just need a referee to keep them from killing each other essentially. No, I'm just being playful, but I was trying to think about, okay, what do I really want this summer to look like? The last 3 summers have been challenging for many different reasons. One of those reasons is my oldest was recovering from pandas, which, if you don't know what pandas is, go check out my previous episodes where I talk about exactly what that means and how that's impacted our family. Recovering from pandas and summer was just kind of hard for her because one of the areas that she has been hit the hardest by this illness or disease is in the area of executive function. And so some of those executive function skills for her were very lacking, which meant that I had to be very, very hands on with her, even, as an 8, 9, 10, 11 year old. So summers were not the most enjoyable for me. Just being completely honest as a mom, I know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. As much as I love my children, it just presented a lot of different challenges. On top of that, I put a lot of pressure on myself to really hustle, hustle, hustle in my business, build, build, build in my business. And and I put a lot of stress on myself, and then I just ended up not really having much fun. Like, it wasn't easy to take days off and just go and take the kids on a day trip somewhere. And so for this summer, I realized that um I really wanted this summer to be peaceful. My oldest has made great strides in her healing, both, emotional and physical healing, and I've made she's made great strides in that. And we were not able to find a nanny this summer, which meant that we're doing more like, day camps for my youngest and things like that. And I just really realized I really don't want to be in hustle mode this summer. So what does that mean for me? If my goal is that I don't want to feel all of this pressure to do, build, 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 then what do I actually want my days to look like? And I just began to write it out. I want my mornings to be peaceful, which means I need to give myself about 2 hours after waking up to get the kids settled, make sure that I am allowing myself to eat a really good, healthy breakfast before we like get on with our day. So that means that my day is going to start closer to 10 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock. And if that's the case, then what kind of support do I need in my business to allow for me to have that kind of morning? And so what I started doing was, I realized like, okay, I can, shift some of my employees' hours, and make sure that I've got coverage for these different things, and facilitate that happening. So I want to just walk you through, just as a very practical exercise, because those of you listening to me know by now that I am a very practical person. I like to take big concepts and make them very doable, on the day-to-day basis. Um, I want to just walk you through that process of how to really prioritize. So the very first question I want you to ask yourself if you're listening to this message is, "Well, how do I want this summer to look?" And be realistic about it. So if I want my summer to look like, my kids have access to fun activities, or that they're doing, less TV and more doing arts and crafts and things like that. Well, I know that I am not the arts and crafts lady. I am not going to get out a bunch of activities and put them together and do them with you. Like, I can handle that for a very short amount of time. So, because I know that, I have to look at, okay, is this realistic for me to do? It's not realistic for me to do, but it is realistic for me to maybe find some activities outside the home that would meet that need that also fit in our budget. And if it comes down to it where it's like, nope, that absolutely doesn't fit in our budget, then I have to let go of that idea of that being what our summer looks like. Does that make sense? Because otherwise I'm setting myself up for disappointment and frustration. And we all know that when this happens, we that comes out on somebody else usually, right? So that's not usually a fun experience for anybody that's involved. Okay. So first question is, what do I want my summer to look and feel like? The second question is, what do I need as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, if you don't have children, for this summer to feel that way? And this is where a lot of women get really stuck because it's hard for us to recognize the area of need. Like, it's, for example, if I know that I'm going to need a break once a week, that might mean, or once a month, that might mean that I need to reach out to a friend or a family member and say, hey, do you mind taking my kids for 3 hours so I can just have non-working downtime? And for a lot of women, that's hard because our generation of 30 to 40-year-olds, we are very self-sufficient, very independent. And one of the clients that I was working with in the Hormone Wellness Academy, we had to do a couple sessions around that because what is it that's keeping you from taking that step? Well, I'm afraid that my mother-in-law is going to judge me. I'm afraid that they're going to think I'm not capable. I'm afraid that that they won't abide by my wishes. And if all of those things are true, then maybe that person that you're trying to entrust with, taking on that role or that capacity, maybe that's not the person you go to. We obviously want to be wise with our boundaries. We want to be wise with who we're trusting with our children. And so some of those were truths for her situation. And so we began to brainstorm, well, who else would be a good fit that you can actually trust? And that ended up being a really good fit for her. So that first question is, what do I want my summer to look like? Second question is, what do I need for this, in order to feel that way? I know for me personally, that means I can't be going the whole summer. I can't be, having every single day filled with activities. I can't be like, that's just not how I'm wired. I like a lot of peace. I like to have downtime. I like to have some quiet, introverted introspection time. And I know that if I'm going, that just is not going to happen. So, and then the second question or third question within that is are these goals attainable? And how am I going to feel if some of these things on my list, if they fall through? If you're looking at it and you're like, I'm going to feel like a failure, I'm going to feel anxious, I'm going to feel like I missed the mark, then maybe those goals or those steps to the goal need to be relooked at or reassessed. For me personally, I look at them and I've just learned over the years, especially of having a higher needs child, a child with some pretty complex medical needs, that I just have to create a lot of flexibility in my schedule. Otherwise, none of us are thriving, right? Um, and the same is true for, like, if we're looking at this and we're saying, I run a really peaceful summer where my kids are connecting really well with each other, then my next question would be, well, what do they need in order to connect well with each other, right? I know for my children that means they need regular breaks from each other. They love each other fiercely, and that is amazing, but they are also siblings, which means that there are fights and different things that happen. So I know for them that means they need some breaks from each other. So I'm going to plan my summer accordingly. Within that, if one of my, if I'm like, looking at, okay, I really want a peace-filled, joy-filled summer. One of the other things that I would ask myself, and you as the listener can ask this too, is what are the things that steal my peace? What are those things? Because that might be for me when my kids ask me for 500 snacks a day. That will absolutely steal my peace. One, because they know where the snacks are, and two, because it ends up costing a whole lot more money and they end up not eating regular meals. So if that is something that steals my peace, then I need to look back at, okay, what am I teaching my children? Am I teaching them by not providing enough structure throughout the day that they can just ask for snacks whenever they want to? Then I need to change some things up, right? Or can I maybe put out, a bin that is, this is your allotted number of snacks throughout the day. You can grab them whenever you want to, but once they're gone, they're gone. And that allows them that fluidity or that flexibility without driving me absolutely crazy, right? Because we know, I don't know if you're a mom listening, hopefully you can relate to that, and I'm not the only one struggling through that. On this list, you can also add, I mean, just as a visual, what are the needs of my family? I know that my youngest needs some playtime with her friends. She needs, the room to kind of develop some other interests and activities outside of what her sister is doing. She loves arts and crafts and creativity. And so, maybe I can send her with a friend for the day to take her to Joanne Fabrics or whatever. If that's something that I personally cannot do on my own. And this just really helps me to set myself up for success, set my children up for success. And also, printing it out, putting it on your fridge allows you to see on those days where you just feel kind of funky, where it's like, oh, I'm tired of the summer already. I'm starting to feel the pressure or the frustration, to look back at this list and see, okay, what do I need to reevaluate here? What's working, what's not working, because what worked one summer may not work in this season, and that's totally okay. But we have to be flexible with that and know that we don't have to do it all in order to provide our children an amazing experience throughout the summer. So I hope that these tips and strategies helped you. If one of your priorities on your list is getting freedom from emotional trauma, turmoil, pain, or balancing your hormones, then make sure you click one of the appropriate links in the show notes. And I would love to chat with you more about that. Thank you for listening.